starting the plumbing business from scratch and getting it to hopefully $4 million this year has been significantly harder than coming in at $4.5 million for the foundation repair company, where we already had kind of an idea of this is how we're going to do business. They were just missing the kind of financial and business acumen to accelerate from that point.
Welcome to the Lead In Podcast, where we dive deep into genuine stories of leaders who've seized control of their journey. This podcast is brought to you by Lead Hub, your growth partner for the trades. And now, let me kick it over to our guy, Austin Lenny.
Welcome to the Lead In Podcast powered by Lead Hub. I got the most, is it the most attractive man in foundation and plumbing repair? I think it's.
I'll take it.
You said on the other podcast I had some nice sound bits that you wanted to play to your wife, so I was just trying to play up to that.
Yeah.
You know, like see, baby, see how supported I am out there on the Twitter spheres.
Yeah, you made a good choice, I promise.
So, my man, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, a little bit of history, and we'll kind of get going from there.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Austin. My name is Hayden Slack. I run a foundation repair company and plumbing business here in Texas. I've been doing it about a decade now and learned a lot of lessons the hard way. But we've had some good success and are trying to do the Twitter build a business and have the life you want thing. See how it'll work out.
And I think what's interesting, right, is the complexity of doing two different things, meaning one of them being, you know, you took over an existing business that was already running, that had a kind of foundation repair, and then you bought one, maybe not as long, but there's a different understanding in both concepts, right? And you know, one of the things that's not talked about enough is respecting the way that they've done it, but also then put your kind of new / your ideas on the business without just bulldozing what was built. And I think that's a hard thing to kind of navigate, per se, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's difficult in general, and I think I recall there's been some discussion on Twitter lately around like the skill set to go from 0 to 10, and the skill set to go from 10 to 100, and starting the plumbing business from scratch and getting it to hopefully $4 million this year has been significantly harder than coming in at $4.5 million for the foundation repair company, where we already had kind of an idea of this is how we're going to do business. They were just missing the kind of financial and business acumen to accelerate from that point.
And, you know, when you say that, what aspects of starting it from scratch was different than growing from, let's say, you know, 10 to 12 to 20 to 30 million? You know, what's kind of the yin and the yang of both situations?
So starting from scratch, you've got a heavy reliance upon the few staff you do have, especially if, like myself, I'm not turning a wrench. No one's asking me to turn a wrench. It's just more difficult with those early few employees when kind of the power dynamics can switch on you pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It's just the truth of it. I mean, it sounds...
So you're sitting there in bed and you're going, man, if this guy quits, we're going to be in a situation.
Yeah.
You know, and I talk
sure.
to Jack does a good, you know, Jack Carr does a good job talking to people about this. He said, look, guys, you know, I'm not a big company. I had 4 people or 3 people quit in a 2-week span. I'm turning wrenches.
Yeah.
That's the reality. We're not running a $10 million company here.
Oh, that's a real problem. Starting from scratch, you've got no reputation, likely no connections unless you've already been in business for a while. And you may not really understand the model all that well. What levers do we have to pull? What does profitability look like? Pricing, organization, all those different things. Whereas when I stepped into the foundation repair business, I mean, we had kind of the genetic blueprint of a sales culture, and everyone knew all we have to do is go sell. It's just what happens after that they had no idea at the time of, well, how can we sell profitably? What does our pricing have to be? How can we go generate new customers regularly? So it just made it simpler early on. When a lot of the business was solved, it was just, how can we get more opportunities? And then we'd level up and have to rebuild the machine again, of course. But it made it easier early on for me.
So I had a guy on earlier today that I interviewed for the podcast, and he said his dad had a couple businesses, concrete for foundation and a bunch of other stuff for years, right? And he said something to me that stuck with me all day. He said, my dad ran a redneck holdco before Twitter knew what a holdco was, and I you're describing this company, and I'm thinking to myself, like, how many businesses out there do you think, I've never heard somebody put it that way, are sales only organizations? Like, they just know how to, like, get the lead or do the thing, but, like, operationally and, like, longevity of business and marketing and all these things, they really have no idea about.
I think a lot if the founder was hardwired that way. They're a rainmaker that didn't like being told what to do. They went and started their own thing, and sales cured all sins for them. But it didn't necessarily help them grow. It just made sure they could cover payroll on Fridays.
And so you step in, and you've got, what I would classify, as, there's really no other way. I only can describe it one way because I don't know foundation companies. You have a roofing culture company where the contract workers are a little wild. I grew up in the restaurant business 20 years. There was a couple guys on a regular basis, Sunday morning shift. It's debatable whether they were going to come in or not. I'm just letting you know. They weren't penciled in to make it, is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So you step in and you got all these grandiose ideas. How did that go over out of the gate?
Oh, I think grandiose ideas is a bit generous. It was more of like deer in the headlights. So in my scenario, my father-in-law, he essentially threw me the keys to the Ferrari and was like, "Don't wreck it." And I was given a lot of leeway, but I'm the least tenured staff at the time. I quickly realized I can't change things unless, you're willing to stop answering your phone. So he officially retired. We had a ton of turnover, and incremental change over time. I'm not a super fast-paced entrepreneur that I'm going to burn it all down and then, like a taskmaster, whip people into the future. To me, it's like we're going to measure things. If we think we can do it better, we're going to change. If that wasn't a good idea, we'll back up and try something new. So for those first 4 or 5 years, it was really just getting my hands around the business. How does any of it work? How do I lead people? Because I've never led people outside of a football field. And it probably wasn't till year 5.5 or 6 that I felt like we really, if we wanted to step on the gas, we could.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever question what you were doing with yourself? Like when you're by yourself? Do you ever think what am I doing here?
Early on, um, but the family dynamics has a way of enforcing commitment that may not exist elsewhere. So even if you're sitting,
That could be, dude, that could be a whole podcast episode, TV show, telenovela, a
yeah,
book.
yeah,
The forced
yeah,
commitment. It's the best. That's the best.
forced, yeah, that's the best kind of commitment. Empires have been built on forced commitment. Um, so yeah, at the end of the day, I knew like, look, the pain of walking away is far greater than the pain of just putting my head down and working. So that's what I did.
And when
And I'm
we,
glad. I think we're all glad that was what happened.
yeah, and I think what's interesting, right, is I'm toying with this idea of like, and I was talking to Josh Schmidt about this morning, and I don't have a fully formed idea, but
Yeah.
and this is not related to what you're talking about, but I can relate it all. So we have a SBA program and we have a mortgage program in buying businesses, in buying multifamily real estate or homes or whatever you want to call it. And we have these boxes that we have to check. And I, the operator, you and I, the operator of the business, you want to go buy another plumbing company, I have to conform my business plan so you give me money. Okay.
Mm.
But at the end of the day, a 5-year, 10-year outlook on a business plan is the biggest load of shit that
Yeah.
exists on the planet. It doesn't matter. And so we're
Yeah.
playing this false game that you know what you're going to do in year 2, 3, 5, 6, when we didn't know COVID. We didn't know recessions. We did like, and so then the question remains, is really the business landscape for somebody, and I'm pulling it all back together, where the
Yeah.
joy of a forced commitment actually gave you the fruits of what you did because you did it for the family. And in those times that were hard, you said, I'm just going to be an operator and do what I know best, which is to work, everything's going to go where it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. The joy of the forced commitment. I think there was times where that existed. Other times I felt like I was chained to my desk, but ultimately, I, some people have some inner talk, and the thing that I've always relied on has been like, no one's coming to save me. The answer is me and what I do next, and that's just kind of how I've made it through the tough times when I feel paralyzed or stuck. It's like, look, just got to keep moving forward. Something's going to change.
So you have this company, you get involved, you're into it, and I think one of the things that impressed me the most when I talked to you, was how many reviews you got, like how you've repositioned the company, how it's grown. Like, walk us through kind of like how you look at reviews. What was the mindset on reviews before you got there, and then kind of what did you implement to like explode the reviews and kind of create this kind of like compounding momentum?
Yeah. So I think it was probably 2018. We started focusing on reviews. We had 35 at the time, or probably somewhere in the mid 15 to 20 range. And the company culture around the reviews was, yeah, they're great. We're not really going to actively go get them. But when we got a bad one, it was all hands on deck crisis. Even if we felt like, man, we did not deserve this in any way, we did our part. And so we went through a couple of different iterations of review management tools. I think one was Review Buzz. All my guys got cards that had a link on it that they could hand to the customer. The customer would have to go track it down themselves. But it really didn't take off until we integrated with ServiceTitan and Pulse-In, and then built an incentive plan around, if you get a review with your name in it, we'll give you $30. And so for field staff, it just shows up on their check. I don't believe that's as impactful. For the office staff, when the review comes in, someone's in my office in the petty cash drawer getting $30, walking it across to them right then. And then now you've got office staff who are generating reviews, and it's off an initial touch point that normally you're not getting a review until, the work is finished, done. And so that's been one of our key points is we try to get reviews at every step along the way. When they call us, after the free inspection, after we're done with the work, and it's helped increase our conversion rates on them.
And how many reviews do you have today? Yeah.
2,200 in DFW, 1,000 in San Antonio, another 300 or 400 in Austin. So it becomes a competitive moat in many ways, especially so in like the plumbing and HVAC where you have more calls than the high ticket calls for the foundation repair company, because in the DFW market, I think Milestone has like 25,000. I'm never going to catch them. Mm-hmm. Like if we got a review on every call from here on out for the next 10 years, I don't think we're going to get past them. Mm-hmm. So once you're far enough ahead, you've got a huge advantage. And the extra advantage is when you do have the unreasonable customer go and leave you a bad review, you can give them the diplomatic response online, and then in the back of your head go, that's fine, we will bury you in the next 5 days, and no one else is going to see it. Yeah.
Well, I think and I'll be honest, like we went from 22, we're at 156 now in like 9 months, right? 22 and 22 years to where we are now, right? And we would get a bad review, and we'd only get 1 or 5. There's no middle ground. We got a 3 the other day, and I almost did a cartwheel through the office. Like, but what's crazy is you get to a point when you get enough that you don't mind the 1-star reviews, because if it's not written properly, the customer can see that maybe they're a little off base, right? And so you just like the more you get and the more compounding you get, you kind of just, I'm not saying get numb to them, but you're not so beholden to them that you like let it ruin your day.
Yeah. Yeah, I still think there's huge value in understanding the root cause of why we were graded as 1-star on our service, and we certainly need to make operational improvements to fix that. But it changes it from a crisis to like a problem solved scenario, which definitely didn't feel like that in those first few years. Giving away work, just anything to make them change it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What and how do you view marketing for your companies and kind of your vision for the brand and what you're looking like? Do you have like a pillars that you believe in, or like what's your kind of like long tail view on marketing for the company?
I think, I would like to find a way to generate customers where we didn't catch them through Google's funnel, whether it's direct mail, OTT streaming. And that's a little bit harder with what we do because there's a huge seasonality to it. And then those types of marketing is very difficult to track. Because all of our businesses are just a couple of changes away from having some real difficulties, since we're inevitably so reliant upon Google for the vast majority of our lead sources. And the foundation repair business isn't, it's missing that membership recurring nature that when you run a plumbing company, you can just call your customer list, call them all every quarter, and generate your own opportunities like that. So we're even more exposed to it.
And if that's the case, then, what he was talking about today, the guy has a junk removal business. He was talking about how, he looks at it as like, it's different for everybody, but 1/3 is for Google and digital marketing, 1/3 is for hand-to-hand, and then 1/3 is Chamber of Commerce referrals and everything like that. And I think, the problem is with the marketing is that some of it doesn't show up for 6 months to a year, and then more importantly, some of
Yeah.
it's done, and you really can't track any data on it.
Yeah.
And that's like those little touch points is like, that's more of a culture thing than it is like an overall marketing thing, because you're not gonna feel that for quite a while.
Yeah. So traditionally, we have done very little branding, probably to our detriment. For us, it has all been performance-based demand gen marketing.
Okay.
And the way I've analyzed it is, we know what our revenue per lead is historically, and if we can generate a phone call for 10% of that or less, then we know we're going to make money off those leads. And so the second we find a lead source that is applicable to, that kind of framework, then we just open it up all the way and max it out as far as possible.
Okay.
And that has seemingly worked well for us. We also are our average sold job is about $12,000. So having a high ticket service makes that a little easier, I think.
And because the landscape of digital marketing and the algorithms are always changing, do you have to stay on top of that all the time? You can't just kind of let it flow for long periods of time?
No, you have to be mindful, because that $250, $300 a phone call, if the call center effectiveness dips for any period of time and that call to book ratio kind of gets squirrely, the math breaks down real quick. Mm-hmm. And we can bust the marketing budget simply because the call center is not booking appointments effectively enough, or they're missing calls.
And what are the average what are the average metrics that you're trying to hit? Like booking to call ratio, stuff like that.
Yeah, we want to be above 90%. For foundation repair, we're not charging dispatch fees. There is less urgency than your typical plumbing or HVAC call. So from a timing standpoint, we're not having to fight as much for, you got to be out here today. If they call us, we should essentially be able to put them on the schedule within the next week, no matter what, unless we identify during that call, like, this isn't even something we do. Like you just called the wrong person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, and obviously, on the backside of this, on the execution piece of like the customer, like, I'm going to go out on a limb, maybe I'm crazy, and say that most people aren't too thrilled about repairing their foundation. So how do you make it kind of a less, what I mean is like the least amount of friction as possible, because they're probably already upset about the whole thing anyway.
Yeah. So for us, the industry is essentially commoditized. Everyone's installing roughly the same thing, the same way. Differentiators have to be reputation, time in industry, because we're all passing out lifetime transferable warranties. And that warranty is only good as long as that business is still around, and excellent customer service. So the customer experience has to be great from the kind of person we send out. If we feel like they're still really confused about their property, we'll hold their hand and hand them off to a structural engineer. Like, look, they're going to do something similar to what we do, but they're licensed by the state of Texas. Have them come in. They'll do what we just did. They'll give you a repair plan. Then you call me back, and I'll tell you what it'll take for us to do exactly what they said. Mm-hmm. And then throughout the job, we've got quality control inspectors that are visiting every job site, so that they'll feel like that the actual labor is being monitored. Mm-hmm. And then we send a gift when the job's done. It's like a pack of brownies. And it is surprising what a $12 pack of brownies does for gratitude. after someone has spent $12,000. It's it's wild.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting as you're describing it. I'm thinking to myself, right? I remember hearing it on a show. Like they're spending money that they're not going to see,
Yeah.
and so getting them comfortable with what's taking place because look, we're not fixing a light in a house. This is a thing that needs to hold for years and years and years. You know, it's a sensitive transaction.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, you were absolutely correct. They're spending money they're not going to see. They do not know if the work has been done right or wrong.
Yeah.
They grade us entirely, in most cases, on is my door sticking anymore? Which is wild. And how does my landscaping look? Does my yard
Wow.
look as clean or cleaner than when they got there?
Okay.
So we have a large emphasis on like trying to turn ourselves into landscapers that last hour of the day. Raking leaves, smoothing out dirt, replanting shrubs and bushes, and attempting to make the non-work look as clean as possible. Because that's how they feel if a good job has been done.
We had a customer who was at work, and she let us come into her house. And one of the techs, you know, he didn't write a note, right? Like that he did work. Okay. She approved the work, but she didn't know that he was there. Like she knew that he was there, but he didn't know that he was there. He didn't make a scene. He was very clean.
Yeah.
And she got very upset, gave us a terrible review. And I called her and she goes, yeah, but I didn't know that he was there. And I just pulled him aside and I said, look, you did nothing wrong. But I said, if you would have just wrote, hey, this is me. I was here. Everything's fixed. Boom. 2 seconds. I wouldn't have had to get on the phone. We wouldn't have had to like all these things. And it's wild to me. Like you said, $12 pack of brownies. It's those little things. It's those extra, that little extra step.
And the funny thing is there's some wild inconsistencies in customers' expectations. Mm-hmm. You take too long and they don't see like value. I got more time for my money. They're like, you must not know what you're doing. This job's taking too long. Mm-hmm. And vice versa. You sell them $5,000 work. Your guy's an excellent technician. He's in and out in 2.5 hours. And like, you must have cut corners.
Scam.
How did he do that? How did he do that so fast?
Yeah, dude. True story. True story. We literally, she called us at 12. I said, we can install it tomorrow morning. She goes, it's a scam. I'm good. Thanks. Hangs up. I'm like, what? I don't understand what to do. I don't understand what to do. We're trying to be a better company to be more efficient for you. And now we're getting in trouble because we're too fast.
That was too fast.
So what's interesting, right? Alex Hormozy says this, and until he said it, I never thought of it. He said the longer you get away from the action that you created, meaning the change or the work that you've done, and you don't ask for a review, the longer you get away from it, that customer or client feels like they could have done it themselves. So if you don't ask for it in the moment, then the longer distance they get away from it. You know, we've had people, and look, my area is different, so I'm just telling you all the fun stories. Yeah. We've had people that have done the work. We've done the work. This is not when I went on board, before I came on board. Done the work. The company didn't bill them for 3 months after, and the customer would go, no, I'm good. I'm not paying that. That was 3 months ago. And I'm like, well, we installed the work. And they're like, yeah, but that was 3 months ago. You didn't send me a bill. I'm good.
Yeah, we ran into that. I mean, it's a failure on the freaking collections department for getting to it, but I don't understand that mindset. It's wild. Like, I went to college 15 years ago, but I'm still paying for it.
All right, here's my favorite question I'm doing these days.
What
is something out there on Twitter or social media that's driving you crazy? Some train of thought, some thought process that's happening right now that's out there, because there's always something going on.
Yeah. think lately it's the I can't tell if it's manufactured controversy. Like
I
someone will
already know where
just take an opposite position. And I may have already talked to this person before. I'm like, I think that guy's a good guy. I don't know why we're even having this conversation. And is it just clickbait, or do you really believe that? But it's
I know
wild.
where you're
It's wild.
going.
And
I
I
know where you're
think it's
going.
part of the game. People
Dude,
that are trying to
I
grow or
texted
play.
Jack. I texted Jack and I go, "Come on, man." I was like, "This is the dumbest argument on the history of the planet. Why are we even wasting our time right now arguing whether or not a 2-man shop, a 2-van shop versus a, 10-man shop, who's going to be around? Who cares?"
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is when it happens. In my opinion, won't matter.
No, and you know what's great? Because I've had properties all around the country. They're all good. They're all good if you're good at what you do. I've had single shop van guys who's crushed it for me in Airbnbs and saved my bacon. And I've had a big franchise company do the same thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
I mean, I've got a 2-man AC shop in the strip mall next to my office. They're the only AC guy I'm going to use. They're not great at business, but they are great at ACs.
They're great at ACs.
The husband will show up, he'll fix it. He won't even bill me. The wife may call me the next day.
I got to tell you a story why this is so important, because this was all happening at the same time. I had an issue with my RV that I can't fix. I never got to, how to do it, right? I own a freaking HVAC, electric, and plumbing company. My guys know how to do stuff. For a month, we tried to fix this thing. A month. Nothing, dude. Tried everything. Spent money. I called a guy that I found on Yelp who rides around the country and fixes RVs. I called him. He goes, yeah. Literally on the phone for 2 minutes goes, yeah, I can fix it. I said, have you ever worked on this before? No, I've never heard of it. I said, but you can fix it? He goes, yeah, I'm good. I said, I own an electric company. He goes, yeah, but they don't work on RVs. I got it. And he came the next day, charged me a ton, fixed it in 10 minutes.
That sounds like it was worth it.
It was totally worth it, but more importantly, he spent the next 45 minutes with me teaching me my RV. It's the best money I ever spent.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
And so we've got away from what a craftsman does, somebody that is really good at what they do. And we've globalized it with these big companies and scale and all this stuff. Like, if you're great at what you do, great barbecue. I love good barbecue. Dude, there are some telltale signs when you show up to a barbecue joint, whether or not it's going to be good. Dude, this is even funnier story. This is kind of disgusting, but kind of cool at the same time. So I used to be in the music business, and I sold booze for 20 years. And I had a friend who was high up in the business too, and we went to this bar in Austin. And it's the rowdiest bar. It's called the White Horse Saloon. It's amazing, cheap drinks. We go into the parking lot. We're literally not even in the door of the bar. And he goes, I can smell piss. He goes, this is going to be a great time. He hadn't even walked inside. He's not even from Austin. But he goes, it's going to be awesome. Had the best night of his life. Like, there's just certain telltale signs that the people that work in your thing. Like, I could talk to that guy for 5 minutes and go, this guy knows what he's talking about. I need him working on my stuff. So important. I love it.
It is.
If people want to find out more about you, they want to track you down, how would they do that?
You can find me on Twitter at Hayden_Slack, or shoot me an email at Hayden@glhunt.com.
Guys, make sure that you reach out to him. Tell him how great he is so his wife thinks he's cool. We'll see you next time. Send it to a friend. Rate us and review us, and we'll see you next time. Folks, if you made it to the end of the episode, I'm sure you found some value with what you're listening to. If you could send this to a friend, rate us and review us, share us around. The more that you share us, the more that we can share content with you. Thank you all so much for your time and listening, and we'll see you next time.